Right, good evening everybody. Welcome to the Kinross-shire Committee of Thursday the 18th September. I think we'll start by doing a round table introductions thing so that everybody knows who everybody is. And then we'll come to the online people just after that. So you want to start us off, Willie?
Willie Mooney, Deputy Road Maintenance Partnership Manager, based in Perth.
Robert Grant, Perth Road Maintenance Partnership Manager.
Darrell McKeown, Senior Engineer in Traffic and Network in Perth and Kinross Council.
Sue Terrace, Emergency Planning and Business Continuity.
I'm non-authority community council.
Elvie Haxton, I'm in Strategic Planning, Performance and Risk in the Council and have a role as Lead Officer for the Committee.
I'm Convener, I'm Dave Cuthbert, Councillor for Kinross-shire.
Richard Waters, Councillor and Vice Convener for this committee.
Bruce Jones, I'm Fosterway Community Council.
Bill Freeman, Kinross Community Council.
Frank Campbell, Community Support and Enforcement.
Sorry, they're trying to make it everybody's names. I'm Pete Leonard. I'm the manager for climate change and zero waste at Perth and Kinross Council.
Okay, I'm aware that people have got their names on the screen, but Willie, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Willie Robertson, I'm one of the Kinross-shire councillors.
Hey, Gillian.
Hi everyone, my name is Jill Liversedge and I'm Community Support and Enforcement alongside Frank.
Thank you. Devindy.
Hi, I'm Devindy Grant. I'm the team leader for climate change and sustainability at the council.
Excellent. Do you want to introduce yourself, Magda, or not?
I'm Magda Pasternak. I'm from Democratic Services.
And Audrey. Okay, so we'll just get Karen. Oh, we've done Karen, have I? Oh, I haven't done Karen. Oh, I'm so sorry, Karen. Please introduce.
That's okay. That's okay. Karen Evans from the CLD team.
Okay, so we seem to be missing a few community councils. That's probably because I haven't been warning people this time round. I've had an apology from Fran, who's the Cleash Community Council, and I've had an apology from Douglas Fraser of Glen Falk. He can't make it tonight, so if those can be noted, that'd be useful. Do we have any? You want to say something, Magda?
No, I just said noted.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? Not seeing any. Everybody hasn't got his hand up, so I think we're okay to proceed. Okay, the outstanding business statement. A minute. I'll skip the minutes. Are we all happy with the minutes of the last meeting?
Yeah.
We note them. Okay, that's good. Okay, moving on then. The outstanding business statement. There's two actions on that. One is complete and one is being completed tonight, probably with Darrell presenting on the template for reporting for road safety issues. Are we happy that they get removed from the outstanding business statement? Okay. Good. So I understand that Devindy needs to get away fairly quickly, so we will start with the Fairer Communities and Green Living Fund. So it's over to you and to Karen.
Okay, thank you, convener. Karen, shall I go first?
Yes.
So, as some of you may be aware, the Green Living Fund has been designed to provide support to community groups with projects that help address both the cost of living and the climate crisis. It recognises that many actions that support these challenges are complementary, and it uses a participatory budgeting approach to build community buy-in and deliver local priorities. So this is the second time that the councils run this. We ran a very successful first round in sort of winter 2023 with the sort of projects awarded in early 2024, and the projects sort of completed their first year in sort of January this year, and they were it was a very successful program, and as such members voted to, in the budget process, give additional resources to Green Living Fund Round 2 this year, which is what we're running. The fund is designed to empower communities to lead practical projects that make a difference in 6 key areas. So energy, transport, waste, climate resilience, nature and engagement. And the Green Living Fund is designed to turn local ideas into impactful action or assist with ongoing projects, in addition to supporting with cost of living. So within that, there was 200,000 allocated across the councils. This has been split up on a ward basis, so all the projects are selected on, or are submitted on a ward basis and voted on by a ward basis. The allocation of the funding was agreed at the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee to be 50% evenly split across all council wards and 50% on population. This formula gave Kinross-shire £17,686.45 worth of projects this year. So the application process is currently open for projects. It opened on the 22nd of August and will remain open until 5 p.m. on the 4th of October. 2 webinars have already been held for community groups to explain the process and go through any questions that they may have. These have been recorded, so if you do know of anyone else who is interested or if they have questions, we're happy to share these with them. And similarly, as we told everybody on the webinar, we're very happy to answer any questions people have of whether or not a project might be suitable, or if they have an idea and need help developing it, or if they have questions determining aspects of the projects like potential sort of climate impact or cost of living impact. We're very happy to help. This year, members approved there'd be a slight change in the process for the Green Living Fund. So rather than the projects being awarded 100% on a participatory basis, just for the Green Living Fund, there'll be 50% of the overall score will be public vote and 50% will be sort of technical vote. That will be a technical score that will be developed by an expert panel. And they'll be scoring projects on expected climate change impact, expected cost of living impact, wider community benefits, and value for money. This approach was developed following feedback from phase 1 groups to ensure that some of the best projects, that even if they're because within a ward, there can be sort of larger communities and smaller communities, and some of the smaller communities felt potentially disadvantaged that they just didn't have the numbers or the following, even if they had a really good project. So this will hopefully help sort of even that out and make sure we get a sort of a split between the two. The initial application process, as Karen will explain in a minute, has been slightly different from the Fair Communities for All, but both projects, once the groups have applied, will then be running in parallel. And we are working together to make sure that the projects, any projects that come to the community, the Green Living Fund that sort of are better fit within the Fair Communities for All will sort of potentially be transferred there, and sort of vice versa, just so projects have the best opportunity to succeed. And then following sort of submission of applications, we will be running a joint voting process with the Fair Communities for All. So the public will sort of go to one online voting page where they can vote for projects in both sets of projects, which will hopefully help both projects get more votes and reach a wider range of people, and ensure there's sort of no overlap, but we'll be following the same approach from there. So the public won't be asked to vote for sort of two similar things in a very short proximity to each other. So that's a brief overview of the Green Living Fund. And Karen, do you want to go through the Fair Communities for All now?
Before you do, I think we'll just see if there's any questions for that specific part of it. I've certainly got one. I'm just curious, what's the uptake been like in Kinross-shire?
So far, we've had 6 applicants overall. There's been at least one from Kinross-shire who's emailed us their logo. I haven't seen any others come through from Kinross-shire, but there may have been more in the last day or two.
Yes, it's still early days, but it's worth taking back into your communities to mention it. Thank you. Any other questions?
Dave,
No?
could I ask a question?
Of course you can.
Thanks for that, Davindy. Can you tell me, there's a lot of areas within Perth and Kinross that have got access to substantial funds from things like wind farms and renewable energy generators. If you get applications for areas that have access to these monies, do you try and divert them to claim against these funds, or can they apply for the Green Living Fund as well? And in spite of the fact that they've got access to substantial funds in other areas.
Right now, in the sort of the guidance that we've put out and members approved, there was no restriction about groups in these areas to apply for other projects, you know, or to prevent them from applying to the Green Living Fund. We could potentially, we have said we'll have a pragmatic approach, and also in terms of how projects are allocated. And if for Kinross-shire, if we see that it's significantly oversubscribed, we could potentially check that these groups are aware that they know these other funds, but they would still be eligible to apply for the Green Living Fund. It's a good point.
Okay, thank you. It's just that there is an imbalance in as much as some communities are can access quite a lot of money and other communities can't. So, you know, it'd be quite good if it was weighted to support communities who haven't got other sources of funding for green living projects.
Okay.
I've got to respond to that one, Willie. And I know you've referred to with Fossaway, with the Fossaway Hydro. A lot of the times these projects, it's got to be match funding. So you're going to apply to the Green Fund, Green Living Fund, and something else. Also, most of these funds don't allow you to apply for expenses. It's only capital expenditure, and most of the projects we come across, they're already well capitalised, but they haven't got any money to run themselves. That's why they're having to go to as many different pots as possible. Or there's a limit. There's a 5,000 cap, and a project needs £15,000. So they're going to have to go to lots of different sources of funding.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for that. But I think, Davindy, could you not make it, if a community group was applying to the Green Living Fund, they could actually apply for 100% of the costs of whatever they're wanting to do from the fund. Am I right?
Yes, they can. Many groups in round one did apply for match funding though, and use the Green Living Fund to help leverage in sort of wider funding into their communities.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
Okay, any other questions? No. Karen, if you want to do your bit.
Yep, so Fairer Communities for All has been a new process that's been developed this year to assist with the administration of the Community Investment Fund and the PB Fund. We also have had an increase to the amount of money that we are able to distribute, and that is through £100,000 that's come from the NHS Charitable Foundation. So that the decision was made to split that equally across all 12 wards. So initially, Kinross-shire had £17,686.45, which is the same allocation as the Green Living Fund, but that has now increased to £26,019.78. So the focus is on cost of living, so projects that help to address the cost of living. We started this process with a series of engagement across the summer months, where we were asking residents, community groups, organisations to help us to identify the priorities that they were recognising in terms of the cost of living within their communities. That information was then analysed and has been looked at on a ward by ward basis with elected members to identify, you know, are these correct? Are these the themes that we're recognising? The top things that came out for Kinross-shire were physical and social well-being, community transport, activities for children and young people, and warm spaces in winter. And what I would say is that the priorities have been very different across all of the ward areas, and I think it has been quite reflective of what the needs are in each of these areas. But additionally, we asked people for additional comments that they could give us around priorities, and some of the things that came out for Kinross-shire were volunteering and training for volunteers, digital and online access, and support for vulnerable groups. So we have, since we've done that data analysis, we have gone back to community groups, and Tuesday night there we held a workshop in Kinross-shire. So there were a few groups that came along to find out a bit more around the process, and it was really encouraging to hear those groups making connections with each other and, you know, building on the knowledge that they already had and giving each other useful contacts and stuff. So there was a real kind of sense of collaboration within the room. So the applications are open now. They opened on Monday, and they are open until the 3rd of October. We have an online support session scheduled for Wednesday, the 24th of September at 2 o'clock, 2 till 4 p.m. If anyone does require any additional help with the application form, there is a Word version and a fillable PDF version of the application form on the Fairer Communities for All website, which is hosted on the PKC webpage. There will be once we get the applications in, we'll do a bit of a kind of pre-screening to check for eligibility, and then we will be having a session with the local elected members on the 22nd of October, where we'll just be checking through the applications and scoring them and deciding which projects will then go forward to a public vote. The public voting will be open from the end of October for a couple of weeks, and we intend to have a results event on Thursday, the 27th of November, and that will be at 6 p.m. in the campus. Now, the results event, we have combined that with the Almond and Erne ward area as well, so it will incorporate a wider set of groups and organisations, and that will include the results of the Green Living Fund as well. So we have the conveners of the Climate Change and Sustainability, so Councillor Waters, and Housing and Social Wellbeing, so Tom McEwen, who will be announcing the results at that event. And the intention would be that any groups who were unsuccessful through that process, because we know that any project which makes it to the voting stage has merit, we would be looking to offer some support to any groups to look at identifying any other potential funding for their project ideas, so that nobody, you know, kind of comes away from that unsuccessful and feeling dejected. We would like to keep the momentum going and try and help them to make their project ideas come alive. So yeah, we'd be looking to pay out the grants from the week beginning the 1st of December, and all of the funding has to be, these are for projects to run up to December of 2026. So that would be the time period for the projects. Any questions?
Thank you for that. I see that Willie's got his hand up. He wants to put a question.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Dave. And thanks, Karen. About the eligibility, the Kinross-shire Committee has used the Community Investment Fund in the past to support groups like the Kinross, the Milnathorpe Paths group in buying equipment, machinery and strimmers, and I think we've helped them buy a flail, and also supporting things like Bloom groups. Are these still eligible under the Fairer Communities Fund?
So what they would need to do is they would need to demonstrate how their projects relate to the cost of living, because when the budget for this round of community investment funding was agreed back at full council, the criteria was projects that address the cost of living. So we need to make sure that any projects going forward are demonstrating that. So it might be that if there are projects that are looking to do environmental things, that perhaps they would be more suited to applying to the Green Living Fund.
Right. So the reason that these groups have been set up was largely because the council can no longer afford to do the work that they do. So it's slightly galling, the fact that and that's why the Community Investment Fund was such a good thing, because it helped elected members actually address gaps that had suddenly appeared because of council cutbacks. So I'd be very concerned indeed. In fact, I'd be extremely annoyed as well as concerned if community groups like the PASS group in Millithorpe and all the various Bloom groups throughout Kinross-shire were having to struggle to get funding to carry out works that the council is no longer able to do.
I think that's more of a comment, Willie, than a question.
It is a comment, sorry, but I'm just...
I'll let you away with that this time. Are there any other questions at this point? Yes. Reels,
it was just on the voting process. If I got this right, I think there was a discussion previously at a previous meeting about you weren't entirely sure, or there hadn't been a decision made on the actual voting process. There was talk about being that an individual may have to vote not only for one project but for 2 or 3 to prevent them, or rather than just voting for their own project. But it was highlighted at that meeting it would just be a tick box. They would vote for their own project anyway and then just tick another 2 to pass go. Has that been resolved?
So there will be mandatory voting, and the number of votes that someone has to cast will be relative to the number of projects that are on offer. So we have said that it would be a maximum of 5 votes that would have to be cast, but obviously if there were only 5 projects going forward to a public vote, we couldn't have 5 mandatory votes. So that number would be reduced depending on the number of projects going to the public vote. And we appreciate what you're saying, that yes, people might just tick other boxes, but it does mean it gives other groups a bit more of a chance that if people are going on, if one organisation has quite a large following, that if they're encouraging people to vote for them, that people will have to consider other projects. And we will be encouraging people to think about the wider the wider needs of the community when they're casting their votes, and that will be explained quite clearly on the voting forum.
I like your enthusiasm for that, but I will tender it with a bit of they'll still vote for their project and then just fill in boxes just to allow their vote to be cast. But I accept your enthusiasm for it.
Thank you. I think Richard's got a question.
I think one just clarity to Vindy on that kind of voting from the Green Living Fund. It's just a precursor, but my actual question is on Tuesday night we chatted about the launch for the voting part of this is on the 27th of October, and Karen, I know we discussed this on Tuesday with some of the groups. What's the potential of launching it a couple of days early, given that the farmers market is on the preceding Saturday? And I know you were going to have a look at that, and then just to ask the Vindy if it does work practically, whether that would be okay with the Green Living Fund as well, because it gives a good event locally, where locals could actually get really involved with it, where you generally get quite a good turnout.
Who's going to answer that?
Yeah. We'd have to look at the practicalities of sort of shifting it a few days earlier, but I'm happy to look at it. There wouldn't be, because I think it would be good for the 2 streams to continue to be running in parallel. I'm happy to have a look at that. Would you be able? What date would you how early would it need to be?
It's only 2 days, so that it's due to launch on the Monday and the farmers markets on the Saturday. What I would add to that is that we will be creating the voting form as we go through the screening meetings with all of the elected members in the ward areas, and the final screening meeting is actually the Kinross-shire one, which is on the 22nd of October. So as long as we can reach all of the decisions on the by the 22nd of October, we should be able to get the form ready and live and able to launch on the Saturday ahead of the official launch, if you like, on the Monday. So it could be accessible.
That would be brilliant. I think that would be really good locally to do that, and I think it just gives that profile with it, both streams, the funding for local groups and everything. So appreciate that, and if they're, you know, obviously asking staff to come down as well on the weekend, as long as that's okay as well, and there's a volunteer from staff and that to come down and help people with the voting process. Thanks very much.
Okay, I've got a question from Lee.
Yeah, thanks. It was just, obviously I've been involved in some of this funding in the past. There used to be, I don't know if there still is, but there used to be a climate challenge fund, which I think was delivered through Sharon Rice-Jones's team. And there's also a nature restoration fund, which is delivered through our green space colleagues. So I'm just thinking about the example that Councillor Robertson raised. There would be potentially alternative funds there. I don't know if Davindi and or Karen can say anything more about those two particular funds. I was also going to mention the Scottish Council for Voluntary Organisations have a Funding Scotland webpage, which is quite handy. You can put in tons of criteria and it can churn out options. So that could be a first port of call, Councillor Robertson, for groups that may feel they're otherwise not able to apply to the funds that have been discussed tonight.
Okay, thanks for that.
Was that a question?
Question for the Davindi guy.
Okay.
You know, happy to come in on that. Yeah, so Green Space this year received additional funding to support Bloom Group. So sort of depending on the scale of funding they require, there may be possibility to get funding from that. My team runs the Nature Restoration Fund. We did allocate a portion of that to Green Space. There's potentially a little bit of underspend or under allocation this year. So if there are additional needs, we could potentially look at those. And then there are other sort of specific grant funds linked. There's Paths for All, which is specifically around sort of path upkeep, and other ones which is a non-council fund. But similarly, I think it's sort of similar. It's what Karen said around how we can work with community groups to help them find the right funding. But this may not be the right pot of funding for every community group, but hopefully we can direct them to the right one, because they are doing very vital work that we want to support.
Okay.
Just on the funding, Tayside Contracts funding is open for community groups and community projects. It is up to a sort of maximum value of £2,500, and it is meant to be in line with works that Tayside Contracts normally carry out. But all the details are on the website if anybody is interested.
Okay. I've got a question. The meeting you've mentioned a couple of times on the 22nd of October, the screening meeting. Technically, the I guess the Fairer Communities sits within the remit of this committee. Now, I haven't passed this by my fellow councillors, but I think it might be sensible that we actually incorporate the community councils in that meeting for that discussion about the screening of the applicants. I'm looking for the two councillors here if they would agree with that, and whether the community councils think that would be a good idea.
Certainly, I think if you're involving the community council, it gives you a selling point to the communities. If there is some sort of involvement from the community councils.
You happy with that? So, Willie, Richard, you happy?
Yeah.
Just to check it's competent.
Yes.
But yeah, is it competent? Who would know? I think it's a decision that we can make because it is within our powers. But so is that going to be acceptable to you, Karen?
Yeah, I mean, if if you want to make a decision on that, and let me know, because one of the things that we will need to do is some redactions on the application forms if we're going to be inviting people who are not elected members.
I still think it would be a good idea to incorporate the community councils. It is technically the power of the Kinross-shire Committee to decide on these sorts of fundings, and I think the committee should be present. So can we arrange that to be done then?
Convener, I would totally support that. If you remember, when it was the Community Investment Fund, one of the things that the Kinross-shire Committee asked for was that all the Kinross-shire Community Councillors should be involved in the decision-making process. And I think that's been very valuable, and I would hate to lose that.
I would agree with that. That's why I'm suggesting it. Because when we've met previously, we've actually known all the different projects and the applicants, so we could actually filter it quite well because we had that local knowledge. So is that a decision we're all agreed with?
Can I ask just what type of information would be missing that we wouldn't be able to see? Because
it would just be personal contact details and bank account details, because that is contained within the applications. So we would just need to make sure that we redact that information before it was shared.
I think that's fine then. We're all agreed. Yeah. Okay, so can we make a note of that, please, Magda? Are there any other questions or any comments you want to make on the Ferry Community Green Living Fund? No, if not, you two are free to go. I know you've got a pickup to do, so I'll let you go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think we'll stick to the agenda. We've got the emergency planning and community resilience thing.
That is me, and
Indeed. So over to you.
I'm just going to share a quick presentation.
Gonna work.
That's when we have to cross our fingers.
Yeah. Well, there is a plug thing over there you can plug into.
Dear.
Oh,
looks like it's doing something.
Put your picture in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's the most annoying part. So that's the first for me. Then it's actually worked. So hopefully that bodes well. Let's just start the slideshow. Okay, so as I said earlier, my name is Sue Terrace and I work in the emergency planning and business continuity arena. Many of you will remember John Handling when he worked for the council, and sort of been working with John to reinvigorate the plans and get things back to where we were before. Frank looks after, with Jill, who's online, looks after the community resilience groups that we have, and the two are quite interlinked, although they do sit in different areas within the council. Now, so Frank and Jill and I are really the type of people that you want to know are there, but never actually want to have to deal with in real life, because generally something's going wrong if we're involved. So I'll just run through a few slides. So why we have emergency plans, basically the Civil Contingencies Act, which is a very long named act, which I think is later in the presentation. I won't even attempt to read that out to you. But that just seeks to minimise the disruption, basically, if there is an emergency within our area, and to ensure that the UK and Scotland, Perth and Kinross-shire, is better prepared to deal with a range of emergencies. So part one is what we'll focus on today, and that looks at local arrangements for civil protection. There is a statutory framework of roles and responsibilities for local responders. Part two looks at the powers that we have and legislative measures that might be required with a particularly serious emergency. It was going so well. So we are, the local authority, we are a Category 1 responder. Within the Act, it names Integration Joint Boards, but really what that is the Perth and Kinross Council Health and Social Care Partnership. So both organisations are Category 1 responders, work at the core of response to emergencies, but we are really there to support the what we call the blue light organisations, so police, fire, ambulance, other organisations in there, health boards, CPA, particularly if we've got a weather or pollution event, and Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. Work closely with them. So our legislative duties are to assess risk, maintain plans, maintain business continuity plans, promote business continuity, communicate with our public, share information and cooperate with all the other responders, as I've mentioned before. And then there are also category 2 responders who we call on if basically something big is happening, or if we need any technical or specialist advice. So, for example, we work closely with SSEN in the area, with SGN, Scottish Water, and a whole host of others there that I won't read out the list to you. And then there are other organisations and groups that also support the category 1 and 2 responders. So, Transport Scotland, Military, Crown Office, Government, the voluntary sector, and also quite often we're involved with commercial organisations as well if necessary. So what is an emergency? So an emergency is a different thing to different people, and the emergency is always really just what's going on in front of you that's causing you to panic generally, but the actual definition under the Act is quite straightforward. So it's something which threatens serious damage to human welfare, serious damage to our environment or to the security. Anywhere in the United Kingdom, but obviously we're looking at our council area for that. So really life or death situation, something that a blue light would be contacted for is generally how we would define that. However, we do within emergency planning get involved in emergencies that maybe sit slightly below that, other things that can happen. There is, in fact, the full name of the Act, which again I'm not going to even attempt to read to you. Let's hope there are no more amendments in the next little while. But there is also a really useful website called Ready Scotland, which has Preparing Scotland guidance within there. So there's quite a lot of information on that website about how to prepare for emergencies as well. So how we're set up in the council is 24/7, 365 days a year. We have an emergency response duty officer on call. We call them ERDOs because, as you know, in the council we don't like a snappy title, we like a long title. So our ERDOs are responsible for basically coordinating internally and also externally the initial response to an emergency or an incident. There are 5 of us who work on call via rota. I with my planning job work as an emergency response officer. And there is also in the council now on call 24/7, 365 a strategic lead. So one of the 14 Health and Social Care Partnership and Council strategic leads is on call at all times. So the ERDO will link in closely with that person if appropriate, providing facts, data, intelligence, and really just that initial assessment with generally a blue light organisation that's contacted us to look at the scale, the duration and the impact of the emergency, and then working with them to make any decisions. So the strategic lead will be called in if they are required to make decisions that are beyond our authorisation or until such times as an incident management team has been set up or if the incident is being dealt with at the tactical level. And they also then just support the ERDO in their duties. So an incident management team would be set up if, for example, we had an emergency that was involving more than one council area. Often the emergencies are dealt with by one council area, and quite often it's the guys on my left. It's a roads emergency, we need a road closure, or we need something done. It could have been a road traffic accident, or indeed it could be weather as well. If it is just roads, and I don't mean just roads, but it's just one service, we'll just deal with them, fix the emergency, deal with whatever's happened, probably do a bit of comms, and that's a closed job. But sometimes we'll get something where many different services are required. So an incident management team would be set up. It's a virtual meeting, and that would they'd be looking at scale, duration and impact, decisions that need dealt with, and who is being called in to actually support that particular incident. And as I said before, the strategic lead will support they are doing their duties. And then generally speaking, if it is a weather event or something within a community, we would be looking at our first port of call to a community resilience group. So Frank is going to take you through them because that's his area.
So, good afternoon. We currently have 64 community resilience groups. I was privileged enough last year to present to Kinross Community Council. They've not come back to me to take up the offer, but I'm sure this will be a wee plug. Our community resilience groups are a fantastic asset for us to have. We don't have eyes and ears in every community like we used to do across Perth and Kinross. And a lot of the time, it's our rural communities that seem to get hit the hardest, because they could be out of power for 2 or 3 days, sometimes weeks at a time. They could be locked in their houses, whether it be snow or trees or roads collapsing, you know, due to surface water damage, and the road comes away. And it's about making our communities more resilient. But there's lots of different scenarios, and every community is different. There is no community group that is the same. Some community groups have 20 volunteers, some have 3 or 4. And these are the people that are well known within the community. They're usually well respected, and they know everything that's going on, and they know who is vulnerable within their communities, and they know who is most in need of support. So one of the main things has obviously been eyes and ears for us. The scenario was last year we had a weather event. We had an incident. The weather event was covering the majority of Perth and Kinross, which is becoming more frequent these days, as we know. I was on the ground in Aberfeldy dealing with the caravan site that was currently getting flooded. I had a call saying Aelith is about the burn's just about to overtop. Then suddenly from Comrie. You know, without our community resilience groups in these areas, we would be totally blind to what is going on. We're very fortunate in the community support enforcement team. We now have 40 deployable officers to go to various locations to find out what's going on. But having the local knowledge from the people that live in these communities, that you can lift the phone and go, Dave, how's things looking today in Kinross? And Dave goes, yeah, the sun's splitting the sky. I've seen that probably when I'm driving up from Fife anyway, so don't worry.
No, usually it's the building falling apart here.
Yes. But the big thing is about getting our communities ready and making sure that they have access to the equipment and resources that they need. So a lot of the things that the communities, we'll not go into it too much, but obviously we've got the South Kinross flood scheme that's heavily talked about at the minute. So there is some flooding issues in Kinross-shire. We also have power issues. You know, power could be out in Cleash or Carnbow, Blair and Gone, wherever. And the hope there that SSEN are going to bring generators down for everybody that's needing them. Because a lot of the time when I go to community councils, everybody thinks that SSEN are going to bring them these generators. Unfortunately, they don't have that resource anymore. And they don't have all these generators waiting in Perth, waiting to get deployed. So it comes back to the local communities to have access to this equipment. So how do they get access to this equipment? Usually by applying for various different grant funding. We've already been talking about grant funding. Oh, sorry, I'm totally off piece here. So we did do a run through on this morning, but once I get started, the grant funding is it's a very simple, straightforward format, and usually it's in conjunction with me. Council put £200,000 in this year into community resilience groups funding. I'm more than happy to talk about that a bit more in particular. But some of the stuff that the groups have been involved in is obviously storms, flooding. One of the big things that affect rural communities is social isolation. We have a lot of people that are in rural communities that are totally cut off if the power goes out. How do we help them? Earlier this year, I had a lady just outside Perth at Craig End. Our carer had went in the morning, realised that electric was out, nothing that could be done. So she contacted us, managed to get some Jackery power packs out to her. got her TV going, got her some hot water, taken her out some soup, etc. All she was really needing is somebody to check in on her, but there's no one. She doesn't have any family. She's totally cut off without electricity. So it's having that local connection, so you know who you need to go and see. Wildfires, we see a lot. We have a lot of issues with wildfires these days, and we have real extreme fire risks due to the warmer weather that we are having. So you have probably seen Scottish Fire and Rescue colleagues that have been putting out high fire risk warnings right throughout the summer, which has been really worrying. And Willie's probably nodding because he was thinking Loch Leven here. We've had the signs out in Loch Leven for most of the summer. Another thing that most people probably don't realise is there's a lot of people around Kinross-shire that are on private water supplies. So water scarcity has been quite high up the agenda over the summer, because since we've had all the dry weather, all private water supplies have been drying up. And there's been people getting in contact with our private water supply team and getting bottled water taken to them, but via us from Scottish Water. So there's a lot of things that's kind of bubbling away, probably due to climate change, etc. I'll say that for repeat company. And a lot of these resources, communities can have access to it on their doorstep without waiting for people to come from Perth or Fife or anywhere. They can have this in Kinross, they can have it in Milnathorpe, they can have it at Fossaway. I've plugged everybody. You know, this money is there to be used by the groups. A lot of these groups are subgroups of community councils, and they're a fantastic asset for us as a local authority, but they're also a fantastic asset for people in the communities that we're all trying to make sure are safe and we can help them as much as possible. So as my able-bodied assistant has put up on the screen, Ready Scotland. Ready Scotland has a lot of key information on there about how you set up a community resilience group. There's lots of stuff in there about home readiness kits. They've got a wee checklist to make sure you've got everything in the house that you need, your torches, your batteries, your extra food if there is a weather warning, your safety kits for your cars, and your medication stuff. There's lots of great information on there. Just please have a look when you get a chance. The PKC website has a lot of information on there as well. That's my contact email address, civilcontingency@PKC. And again, if anybody wants to know anything about the Community Resilience Grant funding that is available, please get in touch with me. More than happy to come and meet you. I like getting out of the office, as most people can confirm. And I do like getting out to meet people in the communities. So if there is anything, please get in touch. Have I missed anything?
No, you haven't. It's just they were.
No,
so I know you wanted to talk about your box walls.
Yeah, the box wall barriers is something that we've recently taken on. We purchased them for the Roads Maintenance Partnership last year. This was a training session that we done at Perth Fire Station just a few weeks ago with the Scottish Flood Forum. As you can see, the volume of water that these barriers can hold back is quite substantial. You can see the sandbag wall on the right hand side and the area that can cover. I can assure you that the people that made that sandbag wall were certainly puffing and panting by the time they put that small wall out. But by the time we had deployed the box wall barriers, I don't even think we broke a sweat. But they're a great piece of kit. Again, it's something that resilience groups, if they felt the need was there for to protect their community from flooding, they're a great piece of equipment to have there as well. And again, it's not just about me and Sue or Jill online. It's about the knowledge, because a lot of the stuff for community resilience we're tying in with other colleagues, whether it be Roads Maintenance Partnership, Jed Scorcher is the flood liaison officer. Me and Jed are on comms all the time. I've been talking to Divindy. We're trying to get some climate change cafes and workshops on the go to get the community resilience groups a bit more aware about climate change. Scottish Fire and Rescue. So I think basically what I'm trying to say here is we've got a wealth of connections that it's great for the community groups to tie on and pull on just when they're needing a bit of support. There we go. Please get in touch.
Any questions?
Could I ask this question?
Hang on, Richard's first. I'll call you in.
Okay.
Thanks, Frank, for that. Frank, there was a discussions of maybe a couple of years ago with potentially doing a list of assets that different resilience groups have, i.e. if like Glenfarg have got like a water pump and somebody out Crooked Devon is struggling with a flood, and then you would be able to coordinate and say, well, you know, speak to this group and see if they can help you with such and such. Has that materialised, or is there?
It's not really progressed, but internally within PKC, it's predominantly it's a Scottish Fire and Rescues system. They have access to an assets register across the whole of Perth and Kinross. We're currently waiting to get access because they've been trying to revamp and upgrade things. People move, etc. Trying to update lists and contact details. But once that's been completed, it's getting sent on to me and Sue. But again, more than happy for us to speak to the community councils. And once you know the community councils and you know what assets they've got in that area, you've already got a log started with what the groups have actually bought through the grant funding that's been available. You know, so it's easy enough just to start tying other things in that's available in the area. Tractors are usually a good one as well for flooding. You know, we've been there.
Okay, Willie, do you want to come in?
Thanks, convener. Thanks, Frank. That was a really good presentation. Sorry, I missed the name of the flood barrier that you showed the picture of. What's that actually called?
A box wall flood barrier.
A what?
Box wall.
Box wall.
Yes.
Right. And will it be if we got them available within the council?
Yes.
That's good. Okay, thanks.
I was going to ask whether they are stored down here or are they always in one location?
So I'm working with RMP colleagues about some sandbag storage down here as well, because they do have some in Milnathorpe. And again, it's just about trying to refresh it and get some more equipment down here as well. So we are keen. If the need is here, which it is, obviously, there's a flood scheme just about to get started, potentially in the near future. So more than happy to try and get equipment down here. But again, it's having deployable assets down here that can get this equipment to go and use it. So a lot of that would be on the RMP colleagues.
Was the segue so that you could come in?
Thank you. Really interesting. And just a very quick question. Is there anything historically that you have that you could provide, particularly to Milnathorpe? Because I only recently became aware of where our sandbags are stored. And now they're in a building which nobody knows if it's unlocked or locked, and we don't know where the key is for it. Is there anything historically that you could supply to us, say, well, you should have A, B, C, D, E, this is where it was, is it still there? So we can actually physically go and check and say, oh, we did have that, we don't have it now, and so we can upgrade it and keep you informed of if there's anything like that you could give to us.
I don't think there is actually a community asset. I think it's the Roads Maintenance Partnerships asset that's where the sandbags are stored at present. But again, if there was a resilience groups, we could have ISO containers, etc., that we could keep all our equipment in if we could find a suitable location.
That'd be ideal. Thank you.
Yeah, my question was going to be how do you get people to volunteer? It's really difficult these days to get people to volunteer for anything, including council, they might say. So how do you do that? Is it?
Again, it's just going out there speaking to people. A lot of people feel that they want a face from the local authority, so it's help getting out of the office and going to speak to the various communities across Perth and Kinross. And once you have the chat with them and you can start listening to what their problems are, you can start suggesting things that may be of use to them. And usually when you start that conversation, that's when people start getting interested, because you're listening to what they're wanting and what they're needing in their area.
So my response to that would have been the skits. always works.
It's usually.
However, what I would say, and Frank's not blowing his own trumpet enough, but if there is a desire or a motivated group that really wants to get something like this off the ground, then to get Frank, and then he's got Jill, obviously working with him now, super organised, to come down and actually really look at what resources there are, and also what other groups are doing. So to have plans that other groups have put together and to look at what they're doing, because there is no point in having 65 slightly different plans right across the area. Let's just jump on the back of all those and set something up so that if the worst does happen, we've got people in this area that we can pick up the phone to and get them deployed much quicker than we can, because we have the same problem internally with volunteers to work out of hours and to work on emergency rotas and things and availabilities. Yeah, Frank's the man.
In terms of the coverage for Kinross-shire, what sort of coverage do you have down here in terms of resilience groups?
None.
None at all. These one in Glenfarga thing.
They never come back to me. They didn't come back. No, and I bumped into him at the bus station when I was at the store. When he was in with the community bus.
Right. Okay, so we need to get you out.
I'll chase them up again.
That'd be good.
That's a quick question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So resilience group, does it have to be part of the community council, or can it be set up by a separate group?
It can be set up by a separate group.
Thinking of the trust.
I think, yeah,
probably
volunteers.
And when Frank came down to the Kinross Community Council, I thought it was an excellent session.
It was an excellent session. There was a lot of sleeping since then.
Yes.
Yeah,
a lot of changes. So
We weren't clear at the start as well, sometimes that some of the groups are literally 2 or 3 people that live in a street that sometimes floods. So, you know, we're calling them a community resilience group and making it sound very fancy. They do need to be established and constituted and things to get access to funding. But a lot of these groups are just small groups of people who are working in their own street or community. And some are much bigger than that as well.
Yeah. Probably just answered the question, but I'm working with a lot of development trusts at the minute. So yeah, it is an easier option for people.
Yeah. Okay, so we need to get down here.
Yes,
we can come down with our biscuits. So. We can see what you can do. I suspect that when you get a flood, people start focusing the brain. So
afterwards, yeah.
I may find very soon there'll be something happening in the weather changes. So, is there any other questions? I was going to make a wee comment just to say that I used the emergency line. I think it was the CMAP school.
It was, yes.
And I was pleased to see the reaction it got, and it did affect things fairly quickly.
Well, that was me, so I'll take full credit for that.
I just wanted to say thank you.
No, thank you. I'm glad it all works. That's good.
Thank you to you personally.
But I probably wouldn't class that as an emergency. However, that is the route that to go through for everything, and it had the right result. So yeah,
it's the spectacles being thrown into the air.
Yes, yes, that's right. I remember now.
Yeah, it's. I think it's an emergency.
It's not our usual, but yeah, as I said at the start, there was a wide variety.
I just wanted to comment that it was well received.
Thank you.
So, is there any other questions?
I think it made people react quicker to the initial email.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, is there any other questions, comments, Sue or Frank? Okay, so we'll move on, and you're welcome to stay, but please feel free to leave. I'm just
go and get back to your house.
Can I just say, you know, the few years, you know, the amount of work that's gone in between this resilience within the council, I think it's been absolutely excellent. And I think we're going to move year on year as a council on that front end resilience, and it's the work in the background that goes on in between times that creates and helps with that quick reaction. And sometimes it's not praised enough to what does get done there. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on then. Next thing on the agenda is the circular economy strategy and action.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure today to come and talk to you about Perth and Kinross's circular economy strategy that's out for public consultation. The Climate Change and Sustainability Committee on the 20th of August approved a paper which gave an update and a final update on the council's waste management plan, which has been in existence since 2010 through to 2025. And obviously a lot of changes happened in those years. So it was ending that was kind of the episode, if you like, but also talking about a whole lot of change which is coming down the line from legislation and guidance and what have you. So we are looking ahead to develop a strategy which will help us to navigate all these things. And what I want to do today is to give you a quick run through some of the things that we're doing there. We did have a little video, but I think in terms of the time, I'll just go straight into the presentation. So what we're trying to achieve with the strategy is, as I say, a lot of changes coming, and getting a decent strategy will help us to shape our future services. It'll help us to understand what investment we need to put into infrastructure, like types of bins, types of lorries, types of household recycling centres, all of these kind of things. Also, we have multi-million-pound contracts for waste disposal, and some of those may need to change over time as well. So this is really big transformational changing stuff. If we're successful, then we'll have a strategy which will help us to navigate all of the changes coming over the next 5 years, and all the various stakeholders that we have will understand what we're trying to do and why, and will assist us with that. And the strategy will be compliant with that changing policy and legislative landscape. And we'll be able to deliver the right service, the right time, at the right cost, I guess I should say, to the right people as well. And ultimately see reduced waste arisings, get improved recycling and much more reuse going on. And there's also an economic development aspect to this as well. So we want to see support new businesses, or businesses modernising themselves, getting leaner and more efficient in terms of materials management, but also creating new products and services, creating jobs that way. So next slide, please. So I guess the starting point is, what is a circular economy? It's a term which you don't immediately, you're not in the know, you're not in the know sort of thing. So if you think about, since the rise of consumerism, we've been pretty much driven to buy stuff. Someone makes stuff, we buy it, we use it, and then we chuck it away and we buy the next best thing. And we're bombarded with messages about upgrade, upgrade, upgrade. Over recent years, that's changed slightly. There's been much more focus on recycling. So probably about the last 10 or 15 years, we've seen more about recycling. We're starting to see manufacturers of packaging, for example, or products start to think about how can they recycle their materials, how can they start to build things or make things with recyclable materials rather than virgin material all the time. A lot of that has been through public pressure, but also through legislation, through form of taxation as well in some cases. The circular economy is really taking that to the next stage. It's encouraging whole system change to think about when people are manufacturing things that they're looking at, yes, trying to avoid virgin material, but also thinking about how can this be reused, how can this be fixed, maintained. And I have to say, it's really going back into the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. That's how society was. And I think we missed a big trick over the last period of time, and we're going to go into that mode again. So there's lots of elements to help us to get to that. We'll never get to the full circularity, but we're aiming to get as much as we can. So next slide, please. So the drivers for the strategy are, as I said, legislative in the main. There's a Circular Economy Scotland Act. And together with that, there's a route map which kind of sets out the steps about how to implement to meet the statutory requirements. We also have the Perth and Kinross Climate Change and Action Strategy and Action Plan, and circular economy and good waste and recycling practice features quite heavily in there as well. So that just shows how our strategy will need to tie in with all of these things. If you look at some of the aims and objectives around the national strategies, there's also a lot of co-benefits as well. So it's things about saving money, helping reduce poverty, helping with improved sort of green space environment, helping to create new jobs. So it is more than just a waste and recycling approach. The graphic on the right kind of shows the complexity of a lot of change that's coming between 2025 and 2030. Lots of different activities are going on at a national level, lots of surveys, studies, co-working workshops to create new policy guidance. So some of the ones that probably of more of interest would be, is there going to be a new household recycling charter? which governs to try and standardise the kind of bins across the nation and the kind of services that are provided. Because if you travel around, you see all different colours, different sizes, different collection frequencies. Trying to standardise as much of that's possible, whilst recognising that there are differences in urban areas, rural areas, etc. And that will probably be statutory, so there may well be some changes coming down the line. In terms of food waste, they're looking at how food waste and organics is collected. So at the moment we have a mixed collection to sort of mainly urban and sort of surrounding areas. There are areas in the rurality where we don't provide that service. Under the changes, we may well have to separate that. There may well be everybody gets a service. So again, there's implications around that. That might not happen, but that's one of the things that's being looked at. There's the deposit returns system, which was due to start, but it fell through. But that is coming at the end of 2027. That will mean people will get rewarded financially for returning plastic bottles, cans, other containers. So that's going to have a massive impact on our doorstep collections. So we have to model all these different things. So that's just a flavour of some of the things, and there are other things coming in as well. Most of those we won't know what the national position is until 2027. So we can't write a strategy now. I said we're going to do this, 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 and this right now. There are some things we cannot be getting on with, but we're kind of trying to figure out our own route map through all of this. This is why it's a 5-year strategy. Next slide, please. This is a sample of the work plan that Zero Waste Scotland are currently working through. That's a 3-year plan, and it just shows you the complete complexity of what's going on there. So I'm not going to go into any detail. It's just to let you know that there's a lot of things going on, and there's going to be a lot of change coming our way. Sorry, the next slide, please, my guy. So to try and navigate through this, what we thought we would do is we need to understand our own priorities and how we were going to apply the legislation and the approach across Perth and Kinross. So what we decided to do was we decided the priorities, we would make them the same as the government's priorities. If there's uncertainty, let's go with what the government are doing. So the 4 key priorities are around reduce and reuse, modernising recycling, decarbonising disposal, and strengthening the circular economy. And then to turn that into a Perth and Kinross approach, we looked at 4 different themes. So one is our own waste and recycling operations. So in essence, that's the next version of our waste management plan. We're looking at all council services because we want to make sure that we're seen as best in class as a waste leader, that we are managing our own materials as effectively as possible. And there's already some really great examples of that going on, and our strategy does showcase some of that. And Tayside contracts, so I've got a couple of examples from there. And then there's also the role that consumers and society can play. So there's a focus on that. And then finally, the section on businesses and industry. And they're all kind of connected, which is what that diagram is meant to demonstrate. Next slide, please. So we've created a vision that we want to try and mobilise people around. So aiming to build communities where everyone understands how to use resources responsibly and to reduce waste, taking pride in making thoughtful choices that support the environment and improve quality of life, protect nature, grow the economy, create jobs and strengthen our communities, and together working towards a greener and more sustainable future. There's a lot in there, but that shows you how interconnected this all is. Next slide, please. Getting into a bit of granularity now, but I won't go through all of these. Really just to give a sample of the kind of things that, how activity in each of these theme areas can make a difference to this agenda. So if we look at the waste and recycling operations, some key things about how can we make it easier for the public and businesses to engage in recycling and reuse activities? How can we support reuse groups to grow? Challenging and supporting our own internal volume, as I said, to get better at managing our own internal waste. Engaging with communities and individuals, those people that are struggling to engage, to try and teach people, if you like, educate folks. We're doing a lot through the schools as well. Monitoring and evaluating our own progress. and invested in infrastructure. So that's fleet, containers, new household recycling centres, IT. There's a lot coming forward around IT, automation and AI, which can help us to manage missed bins, help us to manage and reduce contamination. And one of the things I didn't say earlier was it's highly likely, that's pretty much definitely, there's going to be statutory targets for recycling. So we will have to set and manage the performance against those. Next slide, please. So in terms of council services, what can we do as a council to improve? So better materials management are covered. There's things like sustainable procurement, how we design our buildings, and again we've got some great examples of that. When we're creating business plans for new capital plans or new capital investment, starting to look at whole life costing. So rather than just going for cheapest, we're going for what's best over the lifetime of the building, from a financial but also from an environmental point of view. And then collaborating across council departments, we want to do more of that, and also collaborations between council and businesses, partners and communities. Next slide. In terms of consumers and society, really just recycling and managing waste responsibly and engaging and doing it correctly would be the main thing. But also, encouraging people to reuse more. And we're starting to see this already. We're starting to see the rise of popularity of pre-owned clothing and things like that. Rather than chucking things away, consider repair. There are more and more repair cafes. It's really great in Ross. Just to start to get people to become aware of all this and start to use it. And also encouraging people to consciously make the decisions about when they're buying stuff, to buy it from firms that have got a good reputation in terms of the environment and sustainability. So that's kind of what we're asking the public to do. And then I think the last slide is business and industry. So there's a whole lot of things they can do, managing their own kind of resource and energy efficiency, materials management, but also creating those sustainable products, using less virgin material, designing things which can be reused, can be mended, can be fixed. Some cases, providing services or products and almost like a lease back, so that when you pay for the product, but then you also then when it's near the end of its life, you can swap it back and get a new one when they can fix that and remodel it. And there is more remanufacturing going on. If you have a gearbox, new gearbox in your car. So I unfortunately did a few years ago, sent it to Glasgow and rebuilt. Very seldom get a brand new one now. And interestingly, in the aerospace industry, for years and years, 20, 30, 40 years, everything that's been designed in the aerospace industry has been designed to be. It's just part and parcel of their design, their design ethos. So we need to spread that across a wider range. And there's lots of opportunity in Perth and Kinross, particularly around in the agri sector as well. So that's one of the areas that we're going to be looking at. And then finally, I think just to say, how can I get involved? Next slide. We've got the draft strategy, which provides a lot more detail. And there's a live consultation link on our consultations website. That's going to be live. It's the 14th of October. It's actually the 24th of October. So that's an older slide. We've moved the date. So it's going to be the 24th of October. That's open. And then when we get all the feedback, we'll be collating it, do a final strategy and action plan. And I'll go back to Climate Change Committee early in next year. Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions? Happy to take.
Thank you for that. Right. Do we have any questions?
Councillor Roberts got one.
He's got his hand up, hasn't he?
Yeah. Thanks, convener. It's a challenging situation you've described, but it's actually really exciting one as well, I would think, to meet the challenges going forward. Two questions. Firstly, Kinross-shire was the first place in Perth and Kinross to trial the garden waste bins, and it proved a great success. But one of the regular complaints I get from constituents is there's no very, very seldom is there access to the compost at our local recycling centre. They never seem to have any. So they put their green waste bin out, but they can't get the compost back from the centre. Why is that?
I've experienced the very same thing myself. I'm locally as well, and I know it's always like when it's in, the word goes around and you get out, then you get it quickly. I have to say I'll need to investigate that, Councillor Robertson, just to find out why there isn't a steady run of that. But I will get back to you on that one. Sorry.
The staff at the recycling centre are really good, but they tell me that they very, very rarely ever get compost in, and we've got, as I said earlier, we've got a lot of bloom groups who it'd be really helpful for them to get compost without having to buy the commercial stuff. The second question I was going to ask was, and it's with the point you made about being to actually connect with other council departments, and I was going to ask about planning. There's a development at West Bulgedi that's under construction just now, and it appears there's no facility built into that development for the bins that the houses will have. And so we are giving planning consents for housing developments and not actually asking as part of the standard to have a facility for recycling and for the bins to be located. So am I correct in that, or is this just a glitch?
James, I think you're right in that there's not normally, to my knowledge anyway, been any sort of formal engagement with planning in terms of any planning guidelines that there might be, or if there has been, it was some time ago. So I can speak to planning colleagues and get a sense of what might be possible. I think one of the things that we are aware of is that the bin containers will change over time, and so we'd have to be very careful about if we're building a specific space, that it would have to be flexible enough to make sure that the containers might change. But we do want to see more, particularly if there's a higher density of property, then combined recycling centres is often best than having multiple bins all piled up all over the place and no one knows who's doing what about them. So it's a really good point, and I'll raise that with planning colleagues. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Any other questions? I was going to ask about the public waste bins. Is there any way we can get those so that you have a selection of what you put in? So you put your cans in one bit, you put your general waste in another one, because you see them all over the place, and everything's just combined. So presumably that's general waste.
It's really interesting. So there are councils where that happens. I don't know if there are any in Perth and Kinross that were trialled, and they've got a real mixed success. So in some places, as in this particular locality, it'll work. A few streets down the road, everything just crammed into it. So what you end up with is a bin which is very difficult to maintain, tends to break quite a lot, and in the end it's all mixed up anyway. So that's why most councils at the moment have gone to just general bins with everything in. But I think as the messages start to get through, and if we can start to influence public behaviour more, then I think there is more scope for segregation of bins. And I think trying to get some innovative design which can try and help us with that.
Quite good to have AI that you show your thing to it, so you put it in this one.
Yeah,
because
we do it at some of
the
we do it at some of the sites out near the nature reserves, for example, where we've got the big bins. So it tends to be easier where we've got the big bins. Where we've got smaller bins, it tends to be problematic. But I'll speak to the team about it.
Bill, you want to ask?
Yeah, you talk about the recycling for the plastics and the tins and the cardboard and that, but what about more recycling for glass? Because Kinross did have a couple of places to do recycling glass, but it's down to 1 and 2 now.
2, I think. 2,
because they used to have this one at Sainsbury's, but now we've only got the Millbridge Hall one and the actual one at the recycling centre. Is there any scope for more glass recycling?
So we look at a provision continually. Sometimes things happen which would be beyond our control, which we can no longer run service aside, or in the past, there have been issues on funds. We are in the fortunate situation now where, due to something called packaging, extended producer responsibility, it's almost like it's not quite a tax, but the producers of packaging have been having to pay quite a lot of money into a fund, which then gets redistributed to councils, so that councils can start to use that fund to invest in things that previously wouldn't be able to afford. So there is scope for improving that. So the councils have agreed to give us a bit of a fighting fund to spend about £1 million on making improvements. So we've been looking at, so we've got community waste officers that go out and about, and they know all of what goes on in the communities. They've been coming up with suggestions for where we can improve, either a communal recycling centre or things like that. So I'll speak to the local choir.
Because the was at Sainsbury's, it was ran full.
One of the issues we have as well is that some of the lorries that service those have been having breakdowns, and then the supply chain is such that we have to wait a long time for parts. So that's another unfortunate thing that we're seeing, is that the sites that are there are getting full, and then people start fly tipping. So it's again, we're looking at getting an additional lorry through some of this funding, which might help.
Okay, any other questions?
Just a wee comment. It was a couple of things. Is one thing in this area, we've got a couple of companies, and one's the Kinross Wooden Product with John Ross. I don't know who knows him. And as a council, we do a lot of work with him as well. So we're not buying new furniture and stuff like that as a council. So lead by example. And I think another fantastic example we've seen recently is we had a visit up to Highland Spring recently, and they had it was quite eye-opening really to see it. And obviously use a lot of plastic. They could do most of their bottles with recycled plastic if they had the quality recycled plastic to do it with. So if they want to do their bottles with recycled plastic, they've got to buy the plastic from Europe to actually do it with. And one of the things they were saying, once the DRS deposit return schemes in place, that will allow the types of plastic to get sorted, and then they can start to, as an organisation, become more sustainable in the sense that they'll start doing plastic. A lot of the bottles you get will still get the quality that they want to have in the bottle, but it will be recycled plastic, which is what they can't do without going to Europe to do it. A few really good local examples. Fabic Furniture is another one in Kinross that does some really good recycle stuff and that. So it's great to see these local examples.
I was just going to mention the grey bin, which I think is a fantastic addition in terms of the soft recycling, the soft plastic you can recycle. There is an issue though that if you go on holiday, and my grey bin's the one that gets the fullest, I don't know if everyone else is the same. So if you go to the recycling centre, you can't take the stuff from the grey bin down to the recycling centre, if you see what I mean.
There's a bit at the back. There's a bit at the back you can do.
But sometimes it's difficult to deal with because of the containers that they've got. So the containers that they've got for plastics, you can put film in there as well. You can't put it in a bag, you have to separate it all out. But those containers tend to be quite full, so you get kind of wear gloves and jam it in. But you shouldn't be being stopped to do that if there's it's not a problem. I normally just speak to them, just say I've got, because right now my grey bin is full and I've got 2 bags in the garage full of film I need to get rid of.
That's the issue, because it does. I mean, that's the biggest bin, if you like, is the most used. Do we provide extra ones if people need them as well?
Extra bins for recycling. If people need that, then yes.
Grey ones.
Yeah. There's discussions about, do we need to? Is there more that we can do in terms of recycling? Because a lot of people will say, typically people would say, well, my grey bin's getting full, but my residual waste bin now is half empty. And so can we push that collection out to 3 weeks perhaps? Potentially we could, but as I say, things are changing. change coming at a national level within, you know, sort of 2 years' time. I think it'd be foolish to do a whole scale change, bring the public with us, and then have to make a change again at a later date. So I think we'll just wait for a quick while and then make a change when we can.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments? No. Well, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay.
Yes, I'll find out what these guys are up to.
All right. Okay. So we'll move on in that case and hear from Darryl. That's all right.
Thank you, convener. The outstanding matter about damage only non-injury reporting, I'll leave that to the end if I may, because it ties in with other initiatives that are underway. So from a road safety perspective, the 20-mile-per-hour national strategy has been rolled out across most of Kinross-shire. The other rural communities that were scheduled for have it in place. We're still working in Kinross Town and in Milnathort, and that is due to be finished by, I think it's the end of the first week in October. There were some requested amendments that came in just after we programmed the work in some of the rural communities. And what we had agreed with the elected representatives was, because the 20-mile-per-hour limits have been put in as a temporary traffic regulation order, so effectively it is a trial. As part of that trial, we will review some of those sites where there were requested amendments before we make the trial successful. If we're making the traffic regulation orders permanent, we can include those amendments. Most of those are extensions, the site extensions to the streets that are covered. The Puffin crossings from Milnathort, the one on South Street, is programmed this week. Next week is the end of September, and the one on Stirling Road is scheduled to come on sort of straight after that, so early October. There has been some discussion about Puffin crossings in Springfield Road recently, and we've been in dialogue with our colleagues from the Roads Maintenance Partnership. There is resurfacing works programmed there. We've been talking with Ross about this, and there's an opportunity to carry out get the Puffin, the push button crossings installed while that road closure is in place. So that would include a new crossing on the bend and an upgrade of the existing zebra crossing. Once we have more information about the timescale for that, we'll let you know. The Kinross Transportation Hub got the Park and Ride site. There are temporary measures planned to go in November, shelters and things. But as part, I think the full measures or the permanent measures, that's programmed for towards the end of the financial year. So the funding is available this financial year, but it's likely to be early into the new calendar year before those measures are installed. I know there are a number of initiatives and publicity and promotions planned once the temporary measures are in place that will sort of lead into the provision of the full measures. As part of those full measures, we are looking at a pedestrian and cycling crossing facility on that section of Junction Road. So it's a token crossing, it's a combined pedestrian and cycle push button facility. That is scheduled probably for about March 2026. So right at the end of the financial year, but that is still to be designed and programmed, so we will keep you informed on that. The work is underway at the Mockcars site on the A91, both Mockcars junctions in the north and south of the A91. I was just looking at the design for some of the direction signs earlier today. There's a missing direction sign there. We'll get that put in place, but we're also looking to reconfigure all of the regulatory and warning signs in that area, and that is programmed for this financial year. The traffic surveys are underway up in the northeast on the A94 in particular, and that is to assess the impact of the cross-tie link road mitigation measures. Now I'm making reference to that because the A94 is very similar in character, in alignment, and volume of traffic to the A977. And what we have in place on the A94, which are the ramps at the entrances, we're looking to see whether they have been effective in bringing vehicle speeds down. And if they are, could similar measures be put in place on the A977? What we have found from the surveys which we put in just after the ramps were installed back in March, they were effective in bringing speeds down at the entrance points. However, once the vehicles were over the ramps, the speeds then picked up again. So in the centre of the village, the speeds are similar to what they were before the ramps were installed. We were aware of that from the very outset. We knew that was going to be the likely outcome. The difficulty that we had was we couldn't get agreement from the communities with whether to put in speed cushions, where they were to be located. The intention of the speed cushions, or the little ramps, the squares, would be that once you got your entrance speeds down, that those speed cushions at regular intervals would then help to keep the speeds down through the village. So the traffic surveys are underway. This is the second part of that monitoring in the A94, September, October time. And once we get that information analysed, we'll be going back to those communities to say, well, these are the speeds. Do you want to proceed with the second part of the project? Which would be the introduction of speed cushions. But that then allows us to come back and speak to the communities along the A977 and look and see, do you want something similar here? I would have to say that they're, judging from the reactions around the room, that is no different to what we have encountered up in the northeast area as well. And there are some people who are strongly in favour and there are some people who are strongly against. While these measures are effective in reducing vehicle speeds, they do create noise, they do create vibration, they are not popular in all areas. And you may remember back to the 20-mile-per-hour trial that we did back in 2019-2020, where Kinross-Wood was one of the sites that we selected, and there was not community support for ramps or speed cushions right in the centre of the village. At that particular site, the properties are probably at the closest point to the carriageway than we have in any other community, so we can understand. But from that 20-mile-per-hour trial, we're able to compare that with the data from the cross-tie link road mitigation measures, so we'll be much better informed whenever we do come up with proposals for the A977. And I know that recently there's been some discussion with some of the elected members about similar features on the likes of the B996 going through Gurney Bank, Gurney Bridge, or on the A91 at Carnbow. So hopefully, like I say, we will be better prepared to advise you by the next meeting. That then brings us on to, I suppose, the last main item is the damage only, the non-injury reporting. We'd spoken at the last Kinross-shire Local Committee about creating some sort of reporting mechanism, an online system similar to what the police would have. You're looking at location, time of day, weather conditions, light conditions. It would be available in an electronic format through my PKC, but that members of the community could report those incidents that are not coming through to us through the police's road traffic collision data. Police only provide us with information on injury collisions, and we know, so we can see the evidence, you see the debris, you see the damage to roadside furniture. There's a lot of damage only collisions that are not being reported. We had started that project. Unfortunately, we haven't progressed very far with it, but at the same time, we have been in discussion with several companies who produce software that allows us to analyse in-car data. So there is money available from the Scottish Government, the Road Safety Improvement Fund. The Scottish Government is encouraging local authorities to use some of that money to trial some of these software packages. One in particular that we are interested in analyses heavy braking. Now, not normal braking, heavy braking, where if you had something loose on the parcel shelf in the back of the car, it would come off. We can compare that to sites where we do have recorded road traffic collision data, and it might help us to identify sites where there's a higher risk, where there's a greater likelihood of a collision, allows us to be more proactive, but it is evidence-based. If we're able to combine that with the information we would get from the local communities with the damage only, it gives us a much clearer idea of what is actually happening on the road network. So at the moment, most of our work is reactive. We're waiting until collisions happen, so we have the data. This would allow us to identify potential sites where there's high risk and to introduce mitigation measures. But as part of that whole assessment and review of how we do things, we're also looking at our whole sort of business modelling, how we record that information, how we use that to assess the road safety projects, how we prioritise those projects, how we deal with correspondence and queries from members of the public and from community councils. There's a lot of work that's going on there at the moment. We have a meeting set up now in early October to review the first part of that, which is looking at what all our procedures are. How can we make improvements within the team? How can we make better use of the budget that we have? And we'll be reporting back to the elected members in due course on that. But the damage only, the non-injury reporting will be part of that. We're hoping that that will be one of the outcomes from that review of our business practices. Any questions?
Well, I'll start with Willie because he had his hand up in 27 minutes first.
Thanks, convener. Darryl, it's so refreshing for you to come to a meeting and tell us what's actually happening, the things that people want, and not tell us why things aren't happening. So I just make that comment. It's just so refreshing. The one thing that hasn't happened that I'm delighted about is we haven't seen the traffic lights getting installed at the Muirs Lathangy Road junction. Can you tell us anything about that?
Well, I know that project is related to a planning application. So beyond that, I don't know. I don't have much information. It's not not led by us within the traffic and network team. So no.
It's not that perhaps I've never been informed. I don't think my ward councillor colleagues have been informed, but there's a lot of opposition to it, and I was hoping that somebody somewhere is actually having a second thought about it.
Well, I've been advised by my colleague to my left that it's been deferred to 26-27. So that'd be to the next financial year.
You're going to defer it till the election, Willie. You're objecting to it. So
okay.
They'll bring it.
Thanks, convener.
If you want, Councillor Robertson, I can find out what the position is and update you. I think
if you could, that would be really good, Darren. And if you could update my ward councillor colleagues as well, please.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Next question, Rich. I think you were next.
Fascinating stuff, Darryl, with the ability to, take the cars, recorded information from the companies and actually have a look at and your mind, I'm sure your mind just flipping over with what kind of thing information you can get from that to create an evidence based. So you're initially chatting about just doing something from a heavy braking perspective. So I take it this is going out to a contract, and I've seen some maps where they've done this with various things, but rather than, I don't know what the cost of doing this, but I imagine it's not overly cheap. But is it not worthwhile doing something more in depth in an area rather than just a widespread?
Well, the information's already there. I mean, we're not collating the information as such. Since 2018, your cars have been recording that data. And there are, like I said, there are 3 different companies that we've been speaking to, but one of them actually supplies the equipment to the car manufacturing industry. So it gives her a broader reach, if you like. We had asked about looking for just in one geographic area as a trial, but there's no real difference in getting that just for a small area than what it would be for the whole of Perth and Kinross. What we are interested in is seeing what else we can retrieve from that data, in addition to just the heavy braking, the legs of traffic speeds, and traffic volumes. So we're in discussion with each of the companies just to see what they can offer and how much it would cost.
Within the budget.
We're quite encouraged because money that's available through the Road Safety Improvement Fund would cover that software for either a 1 or a 3-year contract, but it would also leave us money to put physical measures in on the road as well. So it's not as if we would be using all of the budget for that. It would only be part of that budget. Yes, we're excited because we don't know what you were saying, the rate of change and the new things that are coming in. This is something which, 12 months, 24 months ago, wasn't accessible to us, but now it is.
So if you sign up for it, it's just what you want to interrogate within the system.
Within reason, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think everyone's going to have one. Sarah first. Sure.
Thank you. Darryl, thank you so much. It's brilliant what you're doing on the A94, and I'm really pleased to hear that you're reviewing the measures in there and their effectivenesses. But could I reiterate, why haven't we done that on the 977 yet? There's no point looking at the 94 and then applying that to see whether or not more should be done on the 977. More to the point would it be to actually review what's been in place now for 2 years. The lights went live at Drum almost 2 years ago. We still haven't had any proper analysis of the speed limits through from Blaring on to Drum. And it's been raised at every meeting that we've faced each other. And it's going to happen, it's going to happen. The ward councillors tell us at the community council meeting, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. We've never seen anything.
Right, I'll see who was looking at that traffic survey data.
Because we've absolutely no idea. I mean, I am constantly being bombarded on social media and in the post office or wherever. Why have we got 5 sets of traffic lights? The speed's no slower. We've got all these things in place, but the traffic seems still to be going as fast, if not faster. And it's even heavier than it was 10 years ago. We know that. I mean,
yeah,
it's an absolute given. And the next one is that when are the TTROs being reviewed to become TROs? How long is the trial period?
Temporary traffic regulation order is valid for 18 months, but within that time, you'll have to have done your assessment and you've applied to make it permanent. So as soon as the project finishes council-wide, which will take us right up to the end of the financial year, we would then be starting to carry out the monitoring at selected sites. And most of those selected sites will probably be at locations where we have historic data, so we would then have information to compare. So that will include the likes of the A977.
That'll be 18 months after the 30th of March.
No, well, we would want to get most of the assessments done within the first 3 to 6 months.
But you say that 18 months, is that 18 months after the end of this financial year?
No, it'd be 18 months after the temporary traffic regulation order is created. So we would want to be starting on that as soon as we finish the installation. We then want to go straight into the monitoring.
And so that one I put in for changing the speed limit to be 30 across the Drum crossroads. Is that now we're looking at 18 months?
No. The intention still be that 30 would go in now as
soon as. I know the 20's gone in.
Yeah.
And again, this is all over social media. As you're driving west through from along the 977, you hit the 40-mile speed limit at Drum. And then this constant, so many changes, 60, 40, 30, 20. It's causing real headaches to the point of people just going, oh, stuff it, I'm just going straight through. They also know that there's no police. We've had people going out. We did a sort of not a real speed watch, but we just went out with yellow vests on. And it didn't slow anyone down. We've had 2 accidents now, 3 accidents at the crossroads. 2 of which involve the whole road being closed and diversions having to go around Gelvin and Bellardo. So, the pressure that puts then on the other roads.
Yeah.
There are parents who live in Drum and the Backrook who basically won't let their children walk to school. They won't even let them walk to the bus stop to get to the high school bus because they're terrified of them, still terrified about them crossing the 977.
Okay. Is that a question?
My question is, well, the 2 questions, when the TRs, that's fine, yeah, and when we're going to get the review of the 977, please can it happen before?
If the speed limits are being reviewed in 18 months, am I correct in saying that review will be within 3 months?
We would be starting the review as soon as we complete the installation.
Okay, so.
But that's the installation I'm referring to the whole project, which will be right up to the end of the financial year. So in the first quarter of the new financial year, we would be starting the review of the impact of those 20-mile-per-hour speed limits.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've got Neil next.
Sorry, I'll try and work this other question, but it's probably more a comment than anything else. The recording of non-injury road accidents. Historically, any call to the police, it will be recorded on the storm system.
Yes.
And they have to have a disposal code. So surely they can research the storm system, which will provide you with the data of calls which they have recorded as road accidents, the attendance criteria has changed, not the recording process. So there will be a record on Stun of anyone phoning up to say there has been a road accident at Springfield Road. That has to be recorded. It has to have a disposal code. That disposal code is searchable. I'm going back historically, we used to have to do non-accident stats and everything like that, and causation factors, which we don't do now. But I find it difficult to understand why it's not simpler for you to get this information when it already is there.
That's a question you need to direct to Police Scotland.
I know that.
Every local authority in the country has been asking since the single police force came into effect, and they no longer give us the information on damage only. Can we get access to that data?
It used to be a case where there was an automatic dump from the police into the council system, which gave you all the road accident data. That data is still there. It's just
it's not shared.
And unfortunately, to rely on the public to say, oh, there was a near miss here or there was a bump here.
Our preferred option would be for Police Scotland to provide us with that data, but in the absence of that, we welcome any additional information.
But you're just not going to get the full picture.
Oh yes, we know that it has limitations.
It's just why that information is there, why we can't.
But that's why we're quite excited about the idea of being able to access other data.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I practically want as a question.
Thank you.
You talk about reducing volume of traffic in towns, and
I'm not sure I did.
You said volume,
reducing the speed of traffic.
The speed.
Keep going.
It's the same principle, really. The amount of speed passing. I live on Muirs, and the amount of speed that goes past our house is unreal, because it's the main route between Milnerthorpe and Kinross. I know it was reviewed a few years ago about upgrade of the Milnerthorpe junction on the motorway. That would reduce the amount of traffic coming through Kinross and the speeding, because it's only one way in Milnerthorpe. And since then, there's been a lot more houses being built up, and it would reduce the traffic speed. Because the amount of people late at night to speed through Kinross. If they come off at that junction just to go there, it's mitigating the speed coming through the centre. Because I'm then involved with the capital and community action plan, and as one of the major things that's coming up is the N90 access at Milnerthorpe, which would litigate the speed issue of a lot of people coming through Kinross speeding.
I'm just getting that in my thought, not really.
Well, no, because they would be coming up with Milnerthorpe, and they'd be just at where they want to go.
Take them off the 977 as well.
Yeah, they would take them off, as you said, the 977.
I'm waiting for the question.
Can it be done?
The question is, but I thought that
it's not had to be reviewed. I know they did.
That'll be for Transport Scotland.
Transport
Scotland Council. Yeah, they have to be consulted. It's mounted by the transport. We did look at it, but you're right. Full grade separated junction would ease the traffic on other routes. Yeah, and we have spoken with Transport Scotland about this on numerous occasions.
They did the work up on it about, I would say, 10 years ago or less.
We did a draft plan of what it could look like.
Draft plan, and it's since then it has changed dramatically. Kinross and Mill.
Yeah, with the additional housing, traffic volumes. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the measures we're putting in, like the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit, the mitigation measures on the A9, the A94, which may be mirrored on other routes. That's about reducing the speed of vehicles and reducing the likelihood of a collision and reducing the severity of a collision if it does occur. Unfortunately, none of those are likely to address the issue about the increase in traffic volumes. We're still seeing a year-on-year growth.
And my other question is, if I don't bring it up, we'll probably get shot. The gates at Galley Hill Road sign, motion activation sign, speed.
Yeah.
It's still not active, and it's been in a couple of years now, or a year at least.
It's the power supply from Persimmon that's not been provided. So it's possibly a planning issue rather than
So I'll bring it up as
that's fine. I'll find out what the current position is from our planning colleagues.
Yeah. Well done. I'm conscious of time. We've got 10 minutes left, and these guys have been sitting patiently waiting. I've got loads of questions I could ask Darryl.
Well, I would hit these through the message.
The only thing I would ask, I'm curious to hear what other people think, but at the current situation, you come down the Mews and then you turn right onto Springfield Road and vice versa. I'm wondering whether we shouldn't realign that junction so that the actual flow is straight around the Springfield Road corner into the Mews, and you have to actually turn right to go into the to go down the high street towards the central.
We've looked at this before. We've looked at this before. And it is
really tight. There isn't a lot of road space for if you were to increase the sort of the flow of traffic and the speed of traffic on that turning manoeuvre, you would probably have to try and improve the radius.
I think that junction, the bit that sits, with just the gravel, nobody knows who owns it.
Well, I know we don't.
Well, what I'm saying,
as a roads authority,
it's not part of the road. I think it's an inevitable thing because the volume of traffic. We either put a thing on the motorway or we divert that.
We looked at realigning the junction, and there were complications there just because of road space. We'd also looked at signalising the junction, introducing a pedestrian facility, pedestrian crossing facility. They are on the list of future potential road safety projects, but they're well down the list at the moment. Yeah. I mean, and that's part of the review, is looking at how we assess those. Do we look at a benefit cost ratio? Do we look at community interest, or do we look purely at casualty reduction?
Yeah, I think it's
it would have to be bigger than just that junction. You would have to look at potential. I know we've chatted before about the high street. We do one way, so you would have to do that.
You have to use a whole transportation plan looking at the
whole circuit.
I think it's wider. Now time we need to start that process. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah.
So, can we start looking at that? Because the high street
amongst everything else.
Amongst everything else. Yes.
No, I don't know, but it is quite important because we have such a lot of building going on. And there's 370 houses in Persimmon. You've got 200 in Milnerthorpe. They're all coming down that way. Anyway, thank you, Darryl. Really appreciate you coming and talking. You're welcome to stay, but
stay because
you're going to get these two.
Yeah, well, I think we discussed recently the benefits of the closer collaborative working and identifying if there are road cleosures, whether there's opportunities.
And getting some new colleagues in the office.
That's right. Yes, and for next time we'll be moving up to the office with roads maintenance colleagues.
There's all got a new desk from the sustainable supply in Kinross.
Yeah.
Have you just want to be your bit?
Are you Cooler House or
no? We're these are traffic team in Cooler House is moving up to Bramham Industrial.
This going to
the Ruthenfield Depot.
Yep. So one big happy family.
Oh yeah.
Something like that.
Well, thank you for your time. I just sort of wanted to start by saying there were a lot of schemes last year that were deferred within the sort of Ward 8 Ross area. There was 4 schemes deferred for carriageway resurfacing due to Scottish Gas Networks actually notifying after we planned our works. There was a job on the A91 loop to Clacks boundary that was deferred basically following bridge repair works, and we had the A91 Gallow Hill carriageway surfacing there works that was delayed in consultation because that's right outside the mill, so they weren't keen on the time of year that we were doing the work, so we deferred them. This year, we were planning to do 14 surfacing schemes, composing of pre-surface dressing patching through the 4th surface dressing schemes. We've also completed Mormill to Tom Machine. That was quite a large scheme for us. It was just north of 200,000. That was done. We started that on 23rd of June. The A977 Blair Glen, Windy Edge to Whitegates. We've got full width carriageway patching coming up there starting the 29th of September. And we've got a large scheme which has to be a full reconstruction on the A911 Leslie Street, Scotland Well. The B922 Jamesfield. This will just be a phase one of the scheme because there's quite a lot of work needed on the which we'll be looking at undertaking next 3 to 4 years, budgets depending. 1st October, we've also got Hayfield Road and Glenfarg starting. There's carriageway patching and some large overlay sections there. That's where we previously went in to undertake, call it Gabion scour protection works as you come down the hill there because it was quite severely. 11th of November, we're looking to be in Montgomery Street, Kinross from High Street. And then 13th of November, Springfield Road, Station Road, phase one. After that, it's Stirling Road, Milnathorpe, the car park works. We're looking at being in there. We are doing other works in the Kinross area in connection with the road safety team. There are 2 schemes for this year that have been deferred into next financial year, which is the A922, the Muirs from Lithangi Road to Sunny Park Kinross, and that's SGN and developer works are holding us up there, and the A911 in Milnathorpe, that's a Burley Road, footway, slurry sealing, and there was weather delays, so that'll be going on next year as well. I can give you a flavour of the following year's work if you want at this time.
Getting a yes please from Richard, so I guess you better
just bear with me a second. What part of views on this now? You want to talk through that now?
A922 Springfield Road, the second phase of that, carriageway resurface and currently planned for May and June. The A977 Gelvin Crossroads to Belfield, carriageway surface, and A91 Balado Airfield that's an extension of the works that was carried out this year. Again, carriageway resurface, and A922 the Muirs Leisure Centre to Sunny Park, carriageway resurface, and A911 Greenside of Arnott, that's retaining wall and drainage works. Green Road Kinross, carriageway resurface and programme for May, June, and again the footway scheme that Robert talked about at Burley Road, which was deferred from this year, that'll go ahead next year as well. There may be other schemes in the Kinross-shire area. We've not fully compiled our programme, but what we've done is we've picked up everything that's not been done this year, and they're definitely forward into next year. And the surfacing scheme we talked about, they rank highly in our scheme manager, which is a documented list of road surface repairs that are required. We get that from our SRMCS surveys. I've actually got a list of them all here if you want them. We've got we've got 851 sections of road within Kinross that are featured in that list, and 69 of these schemes are within Ward 8.
I appreciate being sent a copy of that electronically.
Yes, I can. That's no problem.
The other members as well. I'm not sure whether that can be shared.
Excuse me. Sorry, I never heard you.
If you can distribute it to all the councillors.
Yes.
And I can then review it and see if it's.
It is quite a hard read. And what I would say is Willie has highlighted up all the ones that are within your date, so you get quicker labour.
That would be fine if I mean, but I'm just saying that because we haven't really got time to go through all those.
Yeah.
So I think if it can be sent on, that'd be good.
When Willie was talking about the schemes for next year, obviously they're dependent on budget and you know, other priorities, because whilst we do get a lot of good information, and that does factor into what our plans are for the forthcoming years, we do also have assistant maintenance officers out in each of the areas, and they see things happening on the ground, deterioration quicker. They will ask for, you know, schemes to be brought forward, or if there is something on that list that is there and they see, well, it's not deteriorating, then we'll ask to put that back and bring some of the other priorities forward. And a lot of that depends on the type of weather that we get, and it's the winter months.
Okay, thank you. So, questions? I've got loads.
I'll keep it light. The 922 at the Acremore Drive and the subsidence in the middle of the road. Do you know anything about it?
Is that it was patched Fisherman's Home?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually,
they worked out the actual reason for it happening.
It was a clash. I don't know the answer, but to me it looked like quality workmanship.
Aye, that's where they dug up in the drain, Carol.
We initially, because it was on a sewer, that was passed to Scottish Water because that's their responsibility. However, because the sewer has not actually been adopted by Scottish Water yet, it was referred back to Persimmons. The initial repair that was actually carried out was just filling in some material. That was actually Gary, the local admiral, had actually got that done just to make the site safe. I think there was also a traffic issue, the fact that there was traffic management on site and was reducing the capabilities of motorists passing in both directions. So Gary felt that it was prudent to get that done as quick as it was good. As soon as he seen that it wasn't going to be done quickly by Simmons, he reacted to it.
Because it was forcing cars were coming onto the Acremore Drive when people were crossing the road at that. So I did that. So it was good to see that reaction, and because it was dangerous for people going up because it's quite a big busy stretch of roads.
Okay, so are you other questions?
I've got a quick question for you. The one that's going to be happening on the A977, the Ridge to Whitegate. See, that's going to be
this year.
Traffic management visits.
Yes.
One side at a time.
Yeah, it's planned. It's on the 977. There is a section from before Drum when you're heading towards Purple Devon. Just on top of the hill there. I've mentioned it to you before, I think, on the ward meeting. But
that's the one he's just mentioned.
Is that the one?
The Gelvin Crossroads to the Bellway, okay. But it would be even better if it went further than the Gelvin Junction and it went maybe all the way to the start of Drums.
That would be lovely.
What I was going to say is
there are future works planned on that whole route.
Yeah. Again,
with the available money, we the most critical area that's in the worst need. So
the reason I was going to mention that was just to say I think it's getting quite urgent. I drove back from Fothway CC and in the dark you hit it and the car moves quite a bit, which because it's a fast road, it's a 15 speed limit, national limit.
I actually cracked my suspension on it.
Hopefully the works that we're doing there soon rectify that. Well,
I just think maybe something as well to do with the fact that the whole thing with the gully clearing and everything else, because a lot of it's the water coming off the Gelvin. The water comes down across the 977 then down to the 9097. So you've got there's more than just the surface of the road. It's the gullies are overflowing. There's flooding on that road.
Yeah, and one of the things about that road, I think it carries 6,995 vehicles, of which 688 heavy goods vehicles, 1,391 light goods vehicles. It's roughly, well, it's 1.5 times as much as the A94 at Burlton, to give you some comparison. So it's a very heavily used road.
You've been doing your homework.
I've been doing my own road, yeah. I'm trying to understand how the whole thing's operating. That's another matter.
A lot of grief at the last CC meeting.
I got a lot of grief at the last CC, yes. The only other thing I would mention is that if, as you're down here, could you drive into Sainsbury's and have a look at the road just outside Sainsbury's? I don't think it's on any of these lists, but it's incredibly heavily used. Buses are, what goes every 10 minutes there's a bus comes through, and there's, because of the junction road, it leads onto Junction Road, and it's really, really busy.
I'm driving. Oh, we'll go there on the way back.
If you wouldn't mind, just have a look, because I've been told it's not needing done. And the same thing at the bottom of Kinross High Street. There's a section down there, and if you're passing, have a look at the repair that was done on the, if you're going east, so heading towards the town around Junction Road. There's a whole lot of work that's been done. It looks like it was a pipe put in or something, but there's all sorts of areas where it's depressed. There's been one pothole filled in already, but I think there's several along that bit of road that are quite, I cracked my suspension on that one, I think, which is why I've got to focus on it. But if you can have a look at that, just wind it down.
Sounds like a utility company.
I don't know who it was, but possibly.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure.
Just on behalf of Glenfarg, you've done quite a lot of good work on the B966.
Yes.
Going down the Glen, which is brilliant, makes such a difference with that bit. But there were people in Glenfarg were asking, is there any more programme works with the bits in between? I know you've done the worst bits.
Years, yes.
It's on the list, but not imminent.
When you see the list, as well, it can just give you a flavour of it. There's the. That's the programme of works for the rest of the year.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? I think Lily's having his tea now. No? Okay, well, thank you very much for that, guys. Any welcome to stay, or you can go if you wish. I think Lily's just going to give us a quick update on data. And
I'll be very brief. I had planned to speak for longer, but given the time.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Magda, I had put together some slides. Could you go straight to slide 6 for me? Would that be okay? I'll just flash up some graphs. These are taken from two main data sources. I was intending to explain where that data's come from, but that would probably take too long. But I'll talk through a couple of bits of information. So first, set of data comes from a programme called Community Insight. It's something the council is doing recently. It's by no means complete. It's very much a work in progress. But the intention is that it will allow, excuse me, I'll flash up very quickly via my own system in a minute. It will allow anybody with access to the system to go in and see the most up-to-date information on each of the multi-member wards in Perth and Kinross. So this is taken directly from that data set, and all it will be showing you is that Kinross-shire in blue, Perth and Kinross in kind of orangey red. There's not much difference in terms of the demographic profile for Kinross-shire compared to Perth and Kinross. It's largely a mirror image. And the next slide, please, Magda. So this is ACORN classification. Now, ACORN is a system that is available nationally, but we have to be very careful about how the information is used because it can go down to individual postcodes. So in some areas, you can actually identify individual households with this information, which is quite sensitive. So we have to be quite careful what we can share. But effectively, what it does is it takes a number of different data sets, pulls them all together and makes it available at a data zone level before then re-aggregating it up for different geographies. So this again is for Kinross-shire as a whole, and ACORN has 6 classifications of different types of household, ranging from luxury lifestyles being the most affluent, all the way down to low income living, which is effectively those families which are on the breadline or below the poverty line. So what you can see here is established affluence, which is the, if I can use high and low, the second highest, thriving neighbourhoods, which is the third, steadfast communities, the fourth, and stretched society, the fifth. And what it shows you there is, again, Kinross-shire in blue and Perth and Kinross as a whole in kind of orangey red. And in short, it shows that comparatively, Kinross-shire has a much higher proportion of households who are classed as being in established affluence than Perth and Kinross. And then it's the flip when it comes to those households which are struggling the most, which is perhaps not a surprise, given what we know about our communities. Can
I just stop?
Sure.
With the economics, a lot of that's based on house prices.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, right.
It's a combination of health and wellbeing data, income data, employment data, crime data. I could go. I have the detail here, but we don't have the time to go into that just now. I don't believe that house prices is involved in that.
Okay.
My answer. Next slide, please, Magda. And last slide. And then this last one then is Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation, which you're potentially more familiar with. That effectively splits Scotland into 6,976 separate data zones and classifies them from 1 being the most deprived to 6,976 being, sorry, yes, 1 being the most deprived to 6,976 being the least deprived. And again, what you can see there is Kinross-shire in blue and Perth and Kinross in orangey red. And it shows that across the different classifications, which you can see along the bottom there, crime, health, housing, education, employment and income, Perth and Kinross is in the upper half nationally, and Kinross-shire performs better than Perth and Kinross across all of those matrices. The last thing I would say, and it's not on the slides, is when you go back to the ACON classifications, the second data set I was going to talk through is something called the Community Planning Outcomes Profile, or CPOP. And if you could stop sharing that, please, Magda, what I'll very quickly do, just for 1 second, is flash this up on my screen so you get a sense of what this looks like.
Sorry, you've done all this work.
No, you're okay. Sure. You're okay.
So I have to present it next time.
I won't be here.
I'm coming to
So what I'll do here is just show you one tab. So this is the Community Planning Outcomes Profile, which is provided by the Improvement Service, which is a support service for local authorities across Scotland. And if I go to, let me get this one, the Community Profile one, hopefully this will display okay on the screen. So what the Community Planning Outcomes Profile does is, this will make sense in a minute, it splits Perth and Kinross as a local authority into 35 intermediate geographies. So there are, I think, 4 for Kinross-shire, and they are classed as Kinross as the town, Glenfarg, but that also takes in bits of Dunning, Powmill, Cleash, Scotland Well, and then we've got Milner, Thornton, Cook of Devon. So overall, out of the 35 localities, what CPOP does, it classes them as the most or least vulnerable. The most vulnerable are ranked higher and the least vulnerable are ranked lower. So Kinross is ranked 23 out of 35, Glenfarg 25th, Powmill, Cleash and Scotland Well 27th, and Milner, Thornton, Cook of Devon 31st. So again, towards the bottom. What you can do here, I'll just give one example given the time. If I click on Kinross, because it's there, and you can follow the line. So what this shows you is that it ranks 23 out of 35 localities in Perth and Kinross in terms of its level of vulnerability, which for vulnerability lead kind of deprivation and socioeconomic issues. Then the second column, compared to other communities in Scotland, how is it doing? And it's in the middle, kind of towards the upper half, which suggests it's not doing as well as similar communities in Scotland. The third one shows all of the 35 communities in Perth and Kinross, and with those improving the most towards the bottom. So in that third column, you want to be towards the bottom. This is suggesting that Kinross town is somewhat static, and this will be changing very much.
Right after this weekend.
And then the last one takes the similar communities within Perth and Kinross and again suggests how Kinross is doing compared to those others. And again, it's showing it's relatively static. It's improving towards the least as opposed to improving towards the most.
It's the spot on the bottom, Perth and Kinross.
And there's other detail, but you know, if you would like to at some point.
That accessible by the general public.
The community planning outcomes profile is what I'll try to do before I go on holiday is do a very, very quick pre-save typed up with hyperlinks and you can go and have a look at yourself.
That'd be brilliant. That will pass it to everybody to have a look at.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
Would the community action plan that we're involved with, I know you've done yours, would this be able to feed into this for
It's a data source, so you could use it to inform a community action plan. Absolutely, yes.
It goes both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? That's wonderful.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I'll just very briefly to say that Lee is actually leaving Perth and Kinross. He's going to join Historic
Environment Scotland.
For his sins.
Right,
So
you.
yeah, I'm disappointed he's going. He's a great help to the committee. So thank you, Lee. Very much. Hope you will.
Does that mean you'll be looking after the objections to the wind farms?
No, that will have sod all to do with it.
I think at that point we should cut the meeting recording. Thank everybody here for coming along.
Thanks, Billy.
Okay.
Thank
you all.
Well done, Dave.
Thank you, Billy. That's very kind of you.
Thanks, everybody.